So you didn't give any exam?
I did not give any exam. Intake is so low. That's why the university can also provide grants and scholarships to students. Not many incoming students were able to get TA positions. Once you graduate as an LLM, you can't do a job as a lawyer. Eating outside is a crime. It costs a lot. So the process was lengthy, which is why I did not want to take any loans. I mean, the most important thing was the budget, because all three universities were charging somewhere between $7,000 to $10,000 a year. But there's a loophole in this, which not many people know.
Hey guys, welcome to College Dunia Study Abroad. This is Varun, and today we have Abhishek call with us. Abhishek is pursuing his LLM degree at University of Victoria, Canada. Hi Abhishek.
Hi Varun.
How are you?
I'm doing good. What about you?
I'm good, thank you. Abhishek, can you introduce yourself to our viewers and talk a bit about you and your background?
Yeah, so I've been a lawyer for almost 9 years now. My first degree was in business administration. I did that from Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University in Delhi. And thereafter, from 2011 to 2014, I did my Bachelor's of Laws from Law Faculty of Law, Delhi University. And since 2014, I've been working. And for the first 2.5 years, I was working with a firm, an intellectual property firm. And then I was working with a stockbroking firm as a legal counsel. And it was very early in my career that I started my own practice. It was the end of 2016. And then from 2016 till 2019, I was practicing across different areas of law, corporate, criminal, family law, arbitration. I was working on agreements, contracts, and it was in 2019 that I decided that I wanted to basically shift my base to Canada. It was not an easy, to be honest, because it requires bridging exams. It also, in a way, I felt that I needed to also have an international experience, a Canadian experience. So I decided to pursue law. I applied to a couple of universities. Now, one thing that I had in mind before I applied was the budget. I had a budget constraint and I didn't want to take any loan because my course does not automatically allow me, once I graduate, to do a job, to work as a lawyer. So I had to give 6 exams. I'm actually in the process of giving those exams over a period of time. And then after those exams, I become at par. I will become equivalent to, let's say, a JD in Canada. And then I'm eligible to sit for the solicitor and barrister exam. So the process was lengthy, which is why I did not want to take any loans. I did not want to go to a university which was charging exorbitantly high, which is the case with the of the North American universities. Now, 3 universities had in mind. Now, first of all, what I would recommend students.
So what all universities did you apply for?
Yes, so 3 universities I applied for one was University of Alberta, which is in Alberta, the capital, Edmonton. Second one was University of Ottawa in Ottawa, Ontario. And the third one was University of Victoria in BC, in British Columbia. I got a from Alberta, and I got through University of Ottawa and Victoria. Victoria, I chose because of its, because of its research reputation, one. Secondly, because of the weather also. Because once you go to Canada, that thing was also on my mind. Because winter, if you don't have a car, it can be very nasty. So, and also I have a term plan of settling down in British Columbia as well.
So you plan to settle in British Columbia?
In Vancouver or Victoria, that's
well, I think like you kind of, I mean, like you kind of answered my question, like why University of Victoria?
I mean, also I'll tell you one more thing. I mean, the most important thing was the budget, because all three universities were charging somewhere between $7,000 to $10,000 a year tuition, which is not very high. It would be approximately around 4 lakh rupees, 4 to 5 lakh rupees a year, which is not much. And if I applied to other colleges, for example, there are other universities like Queen's, U of T, York universities, in fact, whose law programs are very reputed, but their tuition is upward of $25,000, $30,000 a year. So I was paying 3 to 4 times in those universities. So that thing was on my mind. And once you apply to these universities, you're automatically screened for scholarships. So once you receive your
Okay,
admission, it will be mentioned that how much grant you would be getting every year. And most
that's
of the
nice.
students do get these grants.
Okay.
It can vary from 40% to 100%.
Okay,
So
so we should actually get back to that topic. I mean, like, because many people do look for scholarships, and I think you have a
yes,
good enough information on that, which would help a lot. But
yes,
before that, I do have one question. Like, for the
right.
three universities you applied for, did you give any GRE, IELTS, or TOEFL
So
exams?
yes, so yes, so in general for LLM, students are required to give IELTS. That's the
Okay,
general requirement in North America and even in
and
Canada.
is there a
But
limit or a criteria or something?
it can vary from 7. So one has to give IELTS academic, and
Okay,
requirements can vary from 6.5 to 7. Usually it's 7 across most universities, a band of
okay,
7. But there's a loophole in this, which not many
okay,
people know. And
okay.
through this platform, I would want to tell people and all the students who plan to apply for not just law, but even other courses in social science, engineering, fine arts,
Yeah,
sciences. It's that one does not have to do IELTS. One does not have to sit for IELTS. It's not a mandatory requirement. So
okay,
if you are a graduate from a university where the medium of instruction was primarily English, and if you're able to get a letter from your former university stating that, then that requirement will be waived.
wow,
So one,
that's a new information actually.
yes, across, not just law, it's for all programs. And I
That's
personally,
nice.
I actually checked with universities on that. I got in confirmation from them. I went to my former university, Delhi University. I got that letter. I sent it to them, and the requirements was waived off. So one, you don't spend time in preparing for
Oh,
IELTS.
okay.
And IELTS academic, by the way, is slightly difficult than IELTS general.
Yes, yes.
Slightly, and
So you didn't give any
difficult.
exam.
I did not give any exam. Most
That's
of the
nice. That's
time
new.
had given those exams. So when you spend money, it's approximately 13,000 rupees. A lot
Yes,
of times students don't get through that exam. They get
yes,
lesser marks, so they apply again. So one, you're wasting your time, and next, you're wasting your money. So
yes.
don't do I get the medium of instruction letter, and then the requirement will be waived off.
Yep,
And there
that's
are other
true.
two things which I want to get on to, which is one, the statement of motivation. Now, what are these? So my university, so one thinks of it, why are these programs, why are they so, in terms of their tuition, why are they so cheap?
Yeah,
These programs are they're less expensive because the universities get some kind of grants from the state governments, from the provincial governments. So
okay.
most of the LLM and social science projects are research-based there, dissertation-based, thesis-based programs. For example, my LLM is a thesis-based LLM. I don't have to give exams. I have to submit
Okay.
research projects every term.
Yes.
And then I have a final thesis, which I've almost finished now, which one has to do. Unlike other LLMs where we have exams every term,
Yeah.
4 or 5 exams
Yeah.
every term, 2 to 4 terms. That way, it is slightly different. And again, the problem with these three universities is that, and I've told you the advantages, which is that they're cheaper.
Yes.
Their research, the faculty is great, everything is great. The only problem is that their intake is very.
Okay.
For instance, last year, only 2 students got through the LLM program out of 150. Only 2 students got through the PhD program out of 100 almost. Now, that's a very low number.
Yes.
So that's one problem, which is why I would suggest students to have some sort of an experience before applying to either University of Victoria or all these other universities.
Yeah.
Once the admission committee goes through your resume, they need to find something substantial. You can't
Okay.
just fresh
Yeah.
graduate.
So I think the SOP and LOR, all these matter a lot, and along
A
with your
lot.
resume.
A lot.
Okay.
So if you have a previous publication, or if you've worked with, for example, I have worked with a member of parliament. I've also worked with a leading human rights lawyer. I've also worked with a non-governmental organization for a very long time as a volunteer. Now, all of that experience kind of helped me.
Yeah.
And if I'd applied as a fresher, probably not, because I had nothing except for maybe few internship experiences.
So experience is recommended.
Experience, yes, it matters a lot. So even if you have 2 to 3 years of experience, I would suggest you apply. If you don't, then I would say that don't waste your money. At least on University of Victoria or other universities that I mentioned.
Yes.
Because people with solid background. And it can't just be, experience. It can be publications also, as I suggest.
Yes.
Or research
So,
in college.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but how did you manage your SOP and LORs? Let's talk about letter of recommendations, because you did cover a lot part of SOP. I understood that what was supposed to be mentioned. But when it comes to letter of recommendations, how did it work for you? Like, did you get any professional letter of recommendations, or were they academic, or how did that go?
So honestly, I'll tell you, that's a bit of a problem, especially for those people who have graduated long ago.
Yeah.
Like me, going back to college and then finding your professors gets very difficult.
Yes.
And then even more difficult is to actually make them sign it on their letterhead. Especially if you're from a government university, it's all the more difficult.
Yes.
So that's a problem. I had to go to my university on many occasions. I had to speak to my faculty members. Unfortunately, because I passed out way back in 2014, a lot of those faculty members who were close to me, the younger faculty, had left the university. So I was only left with the senior faculty in the university. I had to reach out to them. It's a tedious task, I must say.
Okay.
So this is why I recommend for the September intake, for example, the September 2024 intake, I would recommend students to start working on their applications from May or June. Because it will take at least a month's time to get their LORs. It will, and also I must tell you, and this is a very practical problem that students face, because students are supposed to draft their own LOR sometimes.
Yes.
Because the faculty member would say, okay, you draft it, I'll go through it.
I'll
whatever
sign it. Yeah.
I will make and I will send it to you. Now that's a problem.
Yes.
So you have to draft your own LOR. It's a time-consuming process. I would recommend students to start working on it 15 months before their course starts. So, and the second thing is statement of purpose or statement of motivation, as you say. Yes. It's a very important document. You need to convince the admission committee that why are you applying this course? For instance, I was working for almost a period of 7 years before I applied for an LLM program. Now, it was a kind of a sabbatical for me, because I was working full time, then suddenly this break into my own practice, having my own chamber in the High Court, and then suddenly doing another course. So the reasoning has to be extremely strong. Mm-hmm. Thirdly, you did not take up the third thing that we need to also draft and submit is our research proposal, because it's a thesis-based program.
Okay.
But also for other faculties, whether it's humanities or sciences for that
That's
matter.
new, actually. That's actually new, because we rarely hear that there would be another requirement. But thanks for actually bringing it up.
Yes.
So they have to submit research papers as well.
Yes. So even for engineering, we have to prepare a research proposal, because as it's a thesis-based program, we have to submit a draft proposal of our thesis. So, for instance, my thesis revolves around the right-based movement of people living with HIV from India to the Middle East. In this regard, I had actually worked with an NGO in Delhi, which was working for people living with HIV. And that experience kind of also helped me get through. And you have to understand that your problem and your thesis has to be very unique, because the committee actually screens through Google. They go through whether someone else has worked on this thesis or not, especially when they like thesis and then they shortlist you. They do that as well. So make sure that the problem that you're addressing in your thesis is very unique. And it also has a social leaning, because as I said, you would get a research grant only when there is some advantage or benefit of your thesis for the present or future. So I think these are two things, and all these three universities, my university, University of Victoria, Alberta, Ottawa, they're all research and socially leaning universities. So if you have a a research question which addresses a social problem, then I think the university and the admission committee would be really interested.
That's nice. That's really interesting, actually. So let's talk a bit about your course structure. Like, what is your course structure like?
So we have two terms in which we study. One is, so we are taught over a period of time research, how to conduct research. We are also taught about the indigenous law. In fact, University of Victoria is actually the first university which has started an indigenous law program. We have a center specifically for that as well. And then we are also allowed to take electives. So I took health law as an elective. And for these electives, we have to sometimes sit with students from the JD course, from the LLB course, as we say. So those are classmates. Even though we are graduate students, we have to study those courses with the
undergrads.
So and then comes our research part, the thesis part. So and sometimes the proposal that you've sent to your supervisor or to the university can change depending on the circumstances, because even in my case, I had to make certain moderations to my research proposal. And we work with every chapter, we submit it to our supervisor, we get their recommendations. And then finally, once it is all completed, an external supervisor also comes in and grades the thesis. So the structure works. This is how the structure for all other dissertation or thesis-based courses works in our university.
And how many credits is this whole course, and the duration as well?
It's 21 credits. So 9 is for the thesis, 3 credits each for other subjects that we've studied in the 4 subjects that we've studied in the first 2 terms.
Okay. So a total of 21.
21, yes.
And what is the duration? 2 years.
The duration can be 2 years. It will be minimum 2 years.
Okay, that's great. And coming to the fee structure, can you talk a little bit about the fee structure and the scholarships, as you were mentioning?
Yes. So see, the one thing is that, as I told you initially, that one thing that I was looking for was a university which was in fact in my budget, which was reputed, which had a great reputation for research. And so when I started looking for it, I realized that these 3 were the universities that I wanted to shortlist. So I would also recommend students who are on a budget to make sure that they shortlist. They just can't be applying to every university in North America. So the fee structure, because mine starts from somewhere around 7,500 to 8,000 per year. And it goes on to, for other courses, it goes on till $15,000 to $16,000 a year.
Canadian dollars.
Which is not much, which will be around 4 to 5 lakhs to 7 to 8 lakhs a year. And in terms of your ancillary expenses, your living expenses, I thought that this would also be one of the questions that you would.
Yeah, but let's come back to that in the other section. I would say let's talk about the university.
Tuition is very much in budget. It's somewhere between $7,000 to $15,000 a year, Canadian.
And what about the scholarships that
As I told you, you are automatically screened for a scholarship once you apply. In your offer letter, it will be mentioned how much scholarship you'll get. And because the intake is so low, that's why the university can also provide grants and scholarships to students. And if you're not able to get a scholarship, then the university keeps on, they have a lot of grants and other scholarships that one can apply to.
That's nice.
You can apply for scholarship.
So there is an ample chance to get a scholarship.
Ample chance, and budget is not a constraint at University of Victoria.
Yes, I think that's true. Like, based on the fee structure you mentioned, I think it shouldn't be a huge concern, actually.
So there are Indian universities, law universities, which are more expensive than my university.
Expensive, yes, I totally agree with that. So how are the teaching assistantship or research assistantship opportunity? Do you guys actually have that for your course, or like?
Well, because when I started off, things were a little different. I went in 2021, peak of lockdown. Things are mostly online, so not many incoming students were able to get TA positions. But now that I see a lot of them, especially the PhD students, are able to get TA positions very easily.
Okay, that's nice.
Yes.
That's nice. I just wanted to know if it is easy or not right now, but I think that answers my question.
It's not difficult.
And what about the part-time jobs on campus? And were you doing any part-time jobs?
Yes. So I also did a part-time job on campus, and let me tell you, it's we have a campus newsletter. We also have a campus radio, and all these information are given to us through these mediums. And it's not different. No, it's not. During COVID, I must say things were a little different, but not now. It's easy to get it will take you maybe 3 to 4 weeks before you find a job on campus.
That's really nice. And
the campus, you can find something.
Yeah, that's outside the campus. Like I heard that there are many opportunities as well. Yeah. So what were you working as, and what was your salary like?
So I was working at the library. I was assistant to the library assistant. It was a part-time position, and I was making somewhere between $18 to $18.5 an hour.
Okay.
The minimum wage, I believe, in British Columbia, because minimum wages differ from one province to the other, I think it's 15.25. So yeah, you would get slightly more than the minimum wage on campus.
Yeah, that's I think more than enough for the day-to-day
more than
living,
enough to cover your expenses.
That's good. And let's talk a bit about the future prospects of your course. Once someone graduates from your course, what kind of roles they can look for, and does the university help you to find a full-time job?
Yes. So even when you are in the course, you are provided with the external opportunities. Our UWIC Student Society, UVSS, and even our faculty, they send us emails about upcoming positions or availabilities on campus, outside campus. So for instance, I've just applied to a job yesterday with an organization called Transparency Canada and International Canada, which is an NGO. It's a part-time position, and that was through my faculty. So often on your position, but yes, when it comes to placements, as I think your question is about, then you need to connect to your career cell of your faculty. They would help you. They would be in a better position. But there's always a difference. So if you're doing an MBA program or a postgraduate diploma, the number of opportunities would automatically increase as compared to psychology. So that's the difference there is. Yes.
So what kind of roles should people look for once they graduate? Like any few roles that you want to mention, like the title?
I mean, I'm not getting a question. What kind of roles would you need?
Like let's say like a project manager or a software engineer. These are the titles for a different role, right?
Like depends on what kind of course you've done, to be honest. For example, my LLM program would allow me to work.
My question is for your LLM program alone.
So for my LLM program, especially because there's a huge migration of Indian lawyers to Canada. Once you graduate as an LLM, you can't do a job as a lawyer. As I told you, one has to give exams. One has to get an assessment done. An organization called the NCA. They would recommend somewhere between 5 to 6 exams. Once you give these exams and then you clear the barrister exam, then you can work as a lawyer. But yes, before that, in order to get a hang of what the industry is all about, you can work as a legal assistant or a lawyer's assistant or a paralegal in an organization.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Yes.
So, what is the probability of finding these jobs? I think based on what you explained,
it's not very difficult. It's not very difficult. If you have the skill sets, for example, I have worked as a lawyer for almost, because even when I was in Canada, everything was online that time. So I was doing my hearings online. I had PDF of everything online. I would do my hearings, prepare my notes. So that is a kind of skill set that I carried there. And if I look for now as a paralegal or as a lawyer's assistant, it will not be very difficult for me. Which is why I suggest you should have some sort of an experience.
Yes. So experience helps. The more the experience, the better jobs you can get, I guess.
The better job prospects you have. Yes.
What is the average salary one can expect once they land up in the jobs that you mentioned right now? Any average,
Yes.
like
So
a ballpark number.
yes. So as a paralegal, once you graduate from your LLM program, if you work with, let's say, an international NGO, or if you work with a civil society organization, or if you work with a firm as a lawyer assistant, you make somewhere between minimum, I think, 40,000 to 75,000 a year.
Okay, that's a good bracket.
Once you clear your exams and you become a lawyer, then it goes up exponentially. It goes up somewhere between 110 to 250.
250. Oh, that's again a really good bracket.
Yeah.
So I think you answered this one of my questions already. Like, what kind of companies or organizations commonly hire? Like, any one or two names that you want to mention?
About the companies, there's so many of them actually. It's a very tight market. It's a very so there are smaller firms around Victoria. Given an opportunity, I would want to go to Vancouver. It's a much bigger city with much bigger, with many opportunities and much bigger firm size. And a lot of for all these tier 2 cities, even though Victoria is a capital, but it's a smaller city than Vancouver. And there are other cities, and all the legal work of small and medium-sized businesses in all these cities is driven through firms in Vancouver. So the opportunities always lies in a bigger city.
Okay, got it. Thank you. And let's talk about you and your experience, like your personal experience. What was your first impression when you reached Canada and went to your university? Like, what was it like when you started?
Reached Canada so I reached Canada in September 2021. I went there just after the peak of second wave, and things were very difficult because there was a flight ban between India and Canada for almost 6 months, and we had to then go from one country to another. It was a mayhem. It was very difficult. So I reached Canada in 12 days. I reached university in 12 days because there was a quarantine for 10 days in Doha, then Frankfurt, then Vancouver, then Victoria. So it took me a long time. And things were, even though the experience was great, but it was also a very different experience because not everyone was on campus. We had our classes online, even though it was a small group. We were just like a small family, but everyone was not on campus. So one did feel lonely that time, that there were no friends, there were no classmates, there were no physical classes that time. And I think one problem that I would say people might face in a city like Victoria or even Vancouver would be the accommodation, the living expenses.
Yes, we should actually talk more about that.
So the accommodation for one room in a multi-room apartment or a house would be somewhere between $700 to $1,100.
That's wonderful. That's like actually a lot, I guess. That's kind of
which is much higher than a regular Canadian average.
Okay, yeah.
And
so
then
let's talk about you first. Like, what kind of living situation was yours? Like, were you close to the campus or away from the campus?
So one good thing about Victoria is that everything is close. So the activity is great in terms of buses on campus. So we have buses going to different parts of Victoria every 5 minutes.
That's nice.
Yeah, and it's very well connected with everywhere, even with downtown. And
so you were really near or accessible to the campus then?
Wherever you are in Victoria, the campus is going to be not more than 40 minutes away.
Okay. And what was your accommodation type like? Like, you were staying in a single room or a shared room?
Yes. No, I was living in one room, in a multi-room house, which had approximately 6 rooms. And I was paying around $100 a month. I'm
sorry, I didn't get that.
$100 a month. $800.
You're paying $800, okay.
42,000 rupees a month.
Okay.
$800. And then you also pay for your, the additional expenses would be somewhere between $500 to $600.
Okay, so around total would be around $1,300 to
$1,500 a month.
15.
Would be the
Okay, and let's just talk about the groceries. Like, how much would the groceries cost? Because rent and the groceries are the main core expenses we always have, I
So
guess.
groceries, yeah. So a week's grocery, if someone cooks, so eating outside is a crime. It costs a lot. You can't order like the way you do in India. You can't do that there. You can't just order food from Swiggy for a
Yeah,
discounted 150, 200 rupees and the food is home. Whatever you order is not going to be less than 25 to $30.
yeah,
And then there's some tip involved as well.
yeah.
So it's one has to, if one is planning to go to Canada or even Victoria, I think it is better that one starts cooking a bit. I also did not know how to cook, but I learned it. A minimum grocery expenses for 1 week would be somewhere around, on a lower level, would be around $50 to $60, $60 maybe.
Okay, that's decent. That's actually very decent. So yeah, I think you answered my other question. That is, average total monthly
Oh, there's
expenses
one
would
more
be
thing that I
around
wanted to
50.
tell you. Yeah, for students. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So we have something called a UWIC food bank on campus, which
Okay.
offers not just food in terms of cereals and bars and your daily meal production, uh, also other things like stationery. Which is why I said my weekly grocery budget was so low, because half of the things I would get from the food bank for free. By the way,
Okay.
so
So the university actually is helping you save money, I guess, like in a
yes.
lot of ways. If I
A lot
think,
of ways, especially Indian students or South Asian students are the ones who actually take stuff from
oh
me.
yeah, I think it's everywhere throughout the
Not the
world.
Goras in Canada, not the Canadian Goras, but it's mostly us, because
Yeah.
we want to keep on our grocery budget. So and I think if it's available, why not take it?
Yeah. And when we talk about us, I wanted to ask you this question, like, how's the Indian community near your university or in your university, and how diverse the university is in comparison with the Indian
I
population?
would say, yeah. I mean, in that respect, I would say the campus and even the city is very wide.
Okay.
As compared to other cities in Canada, it's pretty wide. And you will not, although there are Indian students almost in every department, and there's a decent, it's I would not say a very strong Indian student association, but they do have, events for Diwali and Holi. They
Yeah.
meet
Okay.
times in the year, and I think that's it.
Okay.
Nothing.
And do they
But
help
yeah,
us
the
out?
diversity, I would say, is slightly missing.
Okay, that's nice. And do the Indian Student Association help out the incoming students, or like do they have any
No,
services
not
that they
really,
provide?
not really. It is actually the UVSS, the UVic Students Society, which really helps incoming students.
That's
There is a special building that is allotted to UVSS, where students
Okay.
actually, their orientation is usually happen on 3 different days when they start their courses. But even otherwise, for any help, UVSS is always there.
Okay, that's nice then.
Yeah.
And yeah, so can you share one of your good experience and one of your bad experiences you had during your masters?
See, I would say good experience. It's mostly good because it was my first visit outside India. I'd never been outside India, so Canada was the first country that I went to. The campus was huge. Actually, it's more than 400 acres, second largest in the whole of country. And one thing that I kind of missed, as I told you, was the fact that most of our students, most of the faculty is very wide.
Okay.
The diversity, not just among students, but even within the faculty, is slightly missing.
Okay.
Although my supervisor is in Indian, but you do not see many Indian professors in the faculty. I think that will change. Apart from that, I think when it comes to support from the faculty or support from other members of the staff, it's been pretty good.
Okay,
But yes,
that's nice.
you need to sort of you need to associate yourself with with people from your own country. I think then that kind of helps initially, at least.
Yeah. At least you'll have your set of people where you don't feel much homesick, I guess.
Yes, so I made friends outside the faculty as well. That kind of helped me.
Okay, that's nice.
Otherwise, it's difficult finding Indian students there.
Yeah.
My own
And
faculty, there are not many. Like in the JD program, I think 1 or 2 that I've seen out of a class of 300 or 400. The PhD, there are 2 or 3, and it's just me in the LLM.
Okay. And do you have any?
Out of 500 or 400 people, if there are only like 5 or 6, it's not a huge number.
Yeah, that's true. And do you have any advices for the incoming or like aspiring students who
For
want
the
to pursue
aspiring
masters?
students, I would say that one, have some experience. Do not apply just out of when you graduate out of your college. I would suggest that because it's a thesis-based course, and even in other specialities, we have dissertation-based programs. Whatever research they want to address, they should have had some prior experience of working remotely in that area. So
Okay.
one is that. Second is that the only 2 things which will get you admission is one, your statement of motivation or purpose, and second is your research proposal. So I would recommend you work extremely hard on it.
Okay.
It's regardless of the fact that you have prior experience, forget about it. But these 2 things are very important. LORs, no one really cares, I'll be honest. Because it's a standard format, it will be someone recommending you. So LORs, you get it, of course, because that's a mandatory requirement. But these 2 things are very important. And thirdly, be ready to hustle. Because everything is expensive in the city, nothing's cheap, and you need to work a little hard to make your ends meet.
Okay, those were some really nice 3 advices that you have given, and something unique as well. And well, yeah, that's about it from my side. And it was really nice talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Varun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you so much to share your experience and give such great advices.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, and have a good day.